Hey everyone, it's Terry with Terry's Tidbits in the Des Moines Area Community College. In this week's video for the study group, the admin study group, we looked at, Robbie took us through dashboards, and then I did some quick last minute pulling together some thoughts and related to the report security. How to secure your report folders. We also then kind of went back and talked security in general because I think it's an important topic, and I wanted to make sure we covered it, some of the key pieces of that just one more time for you. So instead of doing a Q&A at the end, which is what we had scheduled for this particular one, we took a different approach and just did some refreshing work on security and roles, permissions, those types of things that I think are going to be important to you. So to even if it's a review, it's good. It's a good one to have a second look at because it's going to be important on your exam. Let's take a look at the session. Hey everyone, it's Terry with Terry's Tidbits. I am so glad you're here. All right, good morning, good afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be watching from. And for those of you on the call, good afternoon almost. This is our final session for the data and analytics management piece of the exam. 14% of the exam is on these topics. We started them last week and we will wrap them up today. My gut tells me we're probably going to be out a little early. I'm going to kind of go back and look at some of our previous topics, but I'm going to skip the knowledge exam piece of it today. And so we really have the two presentations. Robbie, you're going to cover the one, I'll cover the other one. And then I want to go back also, I think, and just hit on some of the security controls from early on and when we got started. I just want to make sure that we're good on that piece of the exam. That's a big chunk, and it's an important one that often people get kind of confused with. So I'd like to jump back there, and then I think that keeps us in real good shape to wrap up in 2 weeks, which sounds crazy. So the last set of presentations will be next week, and then we'll have a kind of a Q&A for our final session. So with that, Robbie, I'm going to be quiet, let you take over and cover dashboard options.
Yep, sounds good. And shout out to Spencer for switching with me since I'll be gone next week. So, all right, let me share my screen here.
I greatly appreciate you guys covering for each other like that. That's very nice. Makes it easy for me.
You bet. All right. You guys see this?
Yes.
We good? Okay. So, as Terry stated, I had creating and modifying dashboards. So we'll just dive in here. I'm just going to go through kind of the options and everything, and then I'm actually going to bring up one I created and kind of show how that works as well. So first, to build a dashboard, they're built with source reports, filters, and components mainly. And source reports are those reports that provide data for the components. Each component has one source report. Different components can have different source reports. The fields available for dashboard filters are the fields available in the objects that the source reports are based on. And we create those source reports in the report builder, which we talked about before. Filters let the dashboard readers scope the data they see in the dashboard to a particular view. And the components are kind of the visual blocks of the dashboard, which I'll go through each component that's available here next. So, and these are kind of what the visuals look like, these little icons here. So you have charts, you have gauges, you have metrics, as well as tables, which I'll go through each of these as well. First, you have bar charts that show values at horizontal lengths, and that can be good for comparing distance or time. You can use it to have a summary report with single grouping or only want to display one grouping. So an example, to see the amount in each sales stage in a report, you can select some of the amount at the x-axis as in stage as the y-axis, and the chart would display one bar for each stage with the length proportional to the total opportunity amount. Stacked bar charts are different where they're the other way. And you have multiple groupings are are interested in the proportions between the values in each grouping and each grouping's total. So an example there, compare the status of leads by campaign, and also to compare the totals for each status. You can set the record count as the x-axis, status as the y-axis, and campaign as the stack by value, so the stack part of that. The chart displays a single bar for each status, broken down by campaign, with each campaign shown in a different color. So that's where that stack piece comes in. Line charts are good for showing changes in the value of an item over a series of points in time, such as week to week. You can use it to have one important grouping representing to an ordered set of data and one value to show. Line charts are useful for showing data over time. So an example for that, see the numbers of leads created each month in a report, set record count as the y-axis, and create a month for the x-axis, displays a line connecting the record totals for each month. Salesforce doesn't plot missing values, so anything that's null, it wouldn't show. Another chart is donut chart. I hate donut charts, by the way, but I'll talk about them here. When you have multiple groupings and want to show both the proportion of a single value for each grouping against the total and the total amount itself. Example of this would be to see the breakdown of your case queue by case status and report and total number of cases. You can set the record count for value and status for slice by. The chart displays a donut made up of wedges, and each wedge representing a case status. Wedge size is proportional to the number of cases, and the total number of cases for all statuses is shown in the middle. Next, we'll get to funnel charts. You can use the funnel chart when you have multiple groupings in the order set and want to show the proportions among them. So an example of this would be to see the number of opportunities in each stage in a report, set them out for value and stage for colored by. Since the opportunity stage field is an ordered pick list, the stages are sorted in the same order as the pick list. Funnel charts are useful for showing the flow of opportunities through stages, and substantial larger segment can indicate a bottleneck at that stage. Scatter charts are next, using scatter charts to show meaningful information using one or two groups of report data plus measures. For example, you can see how a stage duration correlates with the number of activities for opportunities. You can group a report by the opportunity name. Then you can set the x-axis on the chart to record count and y-axis to stage duration. The chart shows a dot for each opportunity. So at a glance, you can tell if the stage duration for those opportunities that have more activities. And we're getting close to the end here. So gauge charts are pretty straightforward. A gauge is used to see how far you're from reaching a goal. So like literally just, a little arrow that points on it. So it displays a single value such as closed deals. So you can set it to see how close you're meeting to your target revenue. That's a very common thing to show there. Metric components, use a metric when you have one key value to display. So you just want to show the total number of support cases filed today. So just blast that number for you. And then we have our tables. So Lightning dashboard table, you can show up to 200 records and 10 columns from any field in a source report's report type. The available fields in a Lightning dashboard table come from the source reports type. So you can show fields as columns in Lightning dashboards tables that aren't included as columns in the source report. Tables aren't available in Salesforce Classic, or Lightning tables aren't. They have a different one. And you can't add them from the Classic dashboard builder, nor can you see them in Salesforce Classic. If a dashboard hasn't been refreshed for 7 days, then Lightning dashboard tables display no data. Instead, they prompt dashboard viewers to refresh the dashboard. And after refreshing it, the Lightning dashboard table shows data as normal. I didn't add Terry on here, the classic one, because I assumed it was kind of going away from what I read there.
Did.
Okay.
Yep, I agree.
So next I'm going to talk about how you can run these dashboards as a user. So the running user is the user whose security settings determine the data that's displayed in the dashboard. So when you specify the running user, it's possible to give dashboard readers a broader view of data than they normally have. So for instance, if it's an admin or an internal user, it's possible to expose PII information. I thought that was a good note for something like our industry that has PII available. So
that's an important topic. Make sure you know that topic really well. The running user has all of this is good. Yep,
you bet. So, and how you do that, you have a couple different options here. So this shows the data that's you have access to. So if you can only see opportunities in Canada, then you'd only see those in Canada. Another person is dashboard readers see data in the dashboard according to the data access level of whomever you're specifying there. And then the dashboard viewer is viewers see data as themselves according to their own access to data. So that would be if you're not like on the admin level, you'd only see what you saw. So you can also, your organization can have up to 5 dynamic dashboards for enterprise, 10 for unlimited and performance, and 3 for developer. Dynamic dashboards aren't available in other editions. You can buy them for purchase. So just some limitations here is running as user. You can't follow components on dynamic dashboards. You can't save dynamic dashboards in private folders. You can't schedule refreshes for these dynamic dashboards. They must be refreshed manually. Deleted dashboards that are in the recycling bin count towards the 5 limit must be permanently deleted to no longer count towards that limit. You can't subscribe to dashboards that are set to display data as the dashboard viewer. And optionally, you can let dashboard viewers choose whom they view the dashboard as to enable the reader with appropriate user permissions to choose who they view the dashboard as. So with the view my team's dashboard's user permission, the reader can view the dashboard as themselves or anyone beneath them in their hierarchy. And next, I'm gonna talk about how you subscribe to these dashboards. You can refresh them on a schedule that you set, so daily, weekly, or monthly, and receive the refresh dashboards results by email. And you can subscribe dashboards to either yourself or add other user groups or roles. So an example, every Monday morning you arrive at your desk and you run a case overview dashboard to determine the priority. Instead of manually refreshing it, you can subscribe to it and have it emailed to you and other teammates or whoever you want to send it to. So, and you can set it weekly at 8 a.m., for instance. The recipient section allows you to email a refreshed version of the dashboard to the selected recipients according to the schedule. So by default, the dashboard is refreshed and then the subscription email is sent. If you want to refresh your dashboard on a schedule without sending email to recipients, deselect that checkbox, receive new results by email when the dashboard is refreshed. So here's some more kind of notes and limitations. Each user can set up subscriptions for up to 5 dashboards. You can subscribe to filtered dashboards, but dashboard filters aren't applied to emailed dashboards. When you open the email, that dashboard is displayed without filters. Dashboard subscription emails don't reflect changes made to color palette and theme. You can't subscribe to dashboards that are configured to display data as the dashboard viewer under View Dashboard as settings in the properties. In the email to subscribers, the from address is taken from my email settings. If no address is specified in those settings, the from address is taken from the user object instead. For funnel charts, the total value isn't included in that email. And each subscription supports up to 500 recipients, where each user counts as a recipient, whether added as a single user or in a role or group. Roles, subordinates, and groups can have more than 500 users, but each subscription sends a maximum of 500 emails. If that number exceeds 500, then some of them don't receive those emails. This is the last one, and then I'll show you the good stuff. If a subscription has more than 500 users as recipients, the following rules apply. Their users are prioritized over roles, roles prioritized over roles and subordinates, and roles and subordinates are prioritized over groups. Each time the subscription sends an email, the role and group users who receive it are chosen again. They can be different each time that email is sent. So anyway.
Yeah, no, but before you jump away from there, every one of those slides from 8 on, you're going to want to know those topics. I can almost guarantee you're going to have questions related to that. I'd be shocked if you don't. So I can't tell you exactly where or how they're going to ask those questions, but you're going to need to know that information.
Okay.
So that's good. Well covered.
So here is an example dashboard that I created through the Trailhead. And I was just going to kind of show you some of the buttons here. So refresh, this refreshes the data here. Here's a subscribe button that we were talking about before, where you can actually set those refresh, subscribe emails and all, and or when you want to refresh it, as well as subscribe it to receive the results.
And how often can you refresh a dashboard?
You can do it as much as you want, right? Or is there a limit on the day? I can't remember.
Yes, there is a limit on the number of times you can refresh that. I believe it's like every minute. Try to refresh yours again. So I think you just did it.
Once a minute.
Once a minute.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, good to know. I don't know why you'd be doing it more than once a minute.
As an admin, sometimes you might, just to make sure you're getting it represented right, when that limit can be kind of frustrating. But yeah.
And here you can download, you can save this as a different one. So like if you wanted to copy this and then re-edit, some of the backgrounds there, that's what you do the save as. And then we can edit in here. So if we wanted to add other components, so let's say we wanted to add this opportunity stages report I brought in. This is where you get to choose those chart types that I went through. So bar charts, gauge, table, and then we have where we can customize it a little bit, change the title, whatever it might be. So you can see kind of how these various ones would look with the report I made. So if we wanted to gauge, fall chart. So it's pretty cool. You can pull that in and put it where you want in here. And this one has a filter on the back end as well. So you can add a filter from any of these fields, and you can put that on the whole or on one of these visuals. This is under dashboards. So if you go to dashboards, you can create a new dashboard, start from scratch, save it to the folder you'd like.
So how many components can you have on a dashboard?
I did not run into that. So is there a limit? I don't know why you'd have to, but let's see.
20?
Did I put that somewhere?
I'm thinking 21, but I was just going to go check to confirm and see if anybody can find that real quick, because I think you're going to want to know that number too.
I thought it was 20.
Is it 20? You could be right. I 21 for some reason sticks in my head, but I may absolutely be wrong.
Yeah, I think it's up to 20. I think it's 20.
Is it? Everybody's got a consensus around 20, so I'm going to guess you're right. But
12 columns, 20 components.
Oh, that's okay.
12 columns, 20 components. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. Know that number, 20. Okay. Sorry, I keep interrupting you, Robbie. You're doing great.
I mean, that's pretty much it. Unless I missed something there, Terry.
I think those were the two those last numbers were the ones that I was concerned about. One other though, just in case, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot about Classic on here, but if you convert let me ask it this way. Can you see a Lightning dashboard if you're in Classic View?
You can't see it, but the other way you're able to, within Lightning, edit the Classic table, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So from Lightning, we can see Classic dashboards, but not vice versa. If you edit a Classic dashboard in Lightning, then it will then forever be a Lightning dashboard. I'm 95% positive on that. And you will not be able to then see it on the Classic side. So if you get anything related to Classic, it's probably going to be along that line.
Okay.
I don't think you're going to have to know the components or limits or anything like that on the Classic end. It'll have to do with conversion. Getting things moved over.
That's why I figured that they wouldn't have like in depth about Classic.
Yeah, the exam that you guys will be taking was recently redone, So
Okay.
I'm fairly confident that there's almost nothing related to Classic now. You will still have workflow rules and process
Sure.
builder on it. I'd be surprised if that's gone, because since that was such a newer announcement. But but I think from a dashboard standpoint, you'll be fine. All right, so I'm going to kind of drive through. I do not have a presentation for you on the sharing side, but I want to just kind of talk through some of it with you. And let me share a Salesforce org, and we can kind of work through it. So the topic on this one is the sharing model around data and analytics. So it's really focused on the sharing model for reports. And so let me just kind of talk you through some scenarios that I think will be important for you to know. And then if you have questions, feel free to yell them at me, and we'll try some things out and see what works. If we don't know the answers, we'll figure them out. So when you're looking at report security, the primary thing to remember is that reports, the data that you see on a report is going to agree with the data that you can see in Salesforce. So if you have access to the data in Salesforce, to the record, you should be able to then see it on a report. Like Robbie mentioned, on a dashboard, you have the option to view a dashboard as somebody different than you. So it is reasonable and probable you might get a question along the lines of, I'm a user and I see a dashboard and I can see that maybe the number of accounts is 500 when I look at the dashboard, but when I go to run the report from the dashboard, I only see 300. Why is that? The reason is because your dashboard was running as somebody else. Your reports will always run as you. So keep that in mind. Reports are always going to be based off of your visibility rules. The other thing that you'll want to know as far as reports and the sharing model on reports is that your private folder is private to you. There is a setting. Let me confirm real quick that a admin can manage private reports and dashboards. So there is a permission specifically for managing private reports and dashboards. That does not give you as an admin the ability to go directly to their folder, their private folder. You have to do it all through the API. It's kind of messy, but it is an option. I don't know that that's a hugely important one that you'll have to remember, but for the most part on this exam, I think private is private. It is just that person's folder, and any reports that are stored in there are primarily visible just to them. If they throw in something tricky like, can an admin see it? Read it very carefully, because in some scenarios, based off of that permission, an admin could have access to your private reports and folders. So if it's not a private folder, it would be a folder that's either shared with a group of people or public. And if we simply go into all folders here, I've got a single folder, it looks like, in this org. Einstein report or bot reports. And to check the visibility and sharing permissions here, I click on the menu and I can go to the share. And this is kind of similar to what we see when we are doing sharing roles. We have the ability to share with a specific user, with a role and subordinates, or public group. And if I want to share this with a single user, then I simply can come in here, select that user, determine what level of access do I want them to have to that folder. They can have view only. Edit access means that they have the ability to modify reports that are in that folder. And then manage gives them the ability to also manage security on the folder. So view only. edit the contents of the folder, and then manage the security and contents within that folder. So if I wanted to grant edit access here to Clarissa, I can do that and then just simply hit share. Once I share that, her name and anybody else who has visibility to that folder will be shown down below on that screen. Important just to make a mental note to yourself that report folder sharing is different than data access. It's not done through your profiles like you would normally expect security to be managed through your profiles. It is managed at the folder level within reports. So a little bit different. Just keep that in mind. You can share it with a user. You can share it with a role. If you change it to roles, then you'll see the different roles within the org will show up. Same level of access options available to you. Roles and subordinates, same concept. Anybody within that section. And then public groups. In public groups, we have this also in our sharing roles, where we have a public group called all internal users. That's a good one to be aware of. So if Robbie were to create this folder and he wanted to give access to everyone, he would simply need to come in and share that folder with all internal users, and then you are golden. If we were in a community, and you're not going to get a question like this, but just for your information, if you're in a community, you'll also have some additional options there related to community users and their visibility. Removing access is just simply as easy as clicking on the little X next to whoever you shared it with, and we can stop that share. And that's kind of the big item there on the sharing, at least from that perspective. I do want to go over some of the permissions that are a part of reports. I can get them to come up. So the ability to create and customize reports, that's a permission. So if somebody comes and says, hey, we can't create a report, take a look to see, did we give them the ability to create reports? If we didn't, that is a permission, system permission. The ability to create report folders, also a permission. So edit my reports, export reports. Export reports is a good one because you might get a question along the lines of, you've got a salesperson who's leaving the company and you don't want them to be able to extract data from Salesforce. What are some of the things that you have in your tool belt to prevent that? Exporting reports is definitely one of those. Manage all private reports and dashboards. That's the one that we talked about earlier that gives that visibility to those that need it. Manage custom report types. We talked about custom report types last week. So that does require a permission to be able to go in and modify and manage those. Learning reports, we'll skip that one. Report snapshots, we're going to skip that. That's kind of an advanced topic. Here's manage reports in public folders. So as an admin, if you create the report and you have that set to be public, do you want specific users to have the ability to make modifications in those public folders? If so, then they need that permission. And then we've I think covered these two before, but can they create reports? Classic, Lightning. Can they run reports? Can they schedule reports? Subscribe? And then there are some additional ones there, but those are your different permissions to be aware of from a report sharing. My sense is that it is probably going to be more around the report folder level security and how and understanding that you can assign report folders to users, roles and subordinates and groups. So that'd be my gut feel. Could be wrong. Always good to know all of the stuff. Go into these things over prepared as opposed to under prepared, and you'll be good. Any questions on report sharing?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes.
Robbie, why do you hate donut charts?
They're just boring. I don't know.
I
have my opinion on that. Donut charts don't show you clearly the size of each data set or like the differences between everything as clearly as like a bar chart does, because you can easily visually compare a bar chart compared to a donut chart.
You're not wrong. I just like the way donut charts look. I don't have a good argument for it, but
I always just try to avoid it. I mean, I'll use it, but it's just it's not something I use a lot.
One of my favorite components is just simply, I don't know if I'll be able to throw one up here, but it's just the simple number that, when that's used effectively and you can create a story on your dashboards just with a simple number, it's a fast glance and you know exactly what's going on. It doesn't fit for everything, but I think it's one that's so easily overlooked because it's just a number. Well, just a number sometimes tells a better story than what it would take for me to look at a chart, a gauge, and see, okay, where is it sitting? And I can change its colors too, just like I can on the gauge to have it tell my story. But it's just simple. And I think sometimes underutilized because of its simplicity, but it's a great one. Yeah.
Well, I hate scatter charts, Robbie. So there.
All right.
I rarely use it. Yeah. Unless you're a data nerd, you're not going to understand it anyway.
I can't make heads sounds of it. So I think what I don't understand.
No, Terry, I totally agree. As a data analyst, I use those small numbers all the time because from a user perspective, a lot of times they just want a quick snapshot of where are my numbers at.
It's a perfect one for that homepage.
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. It just sits so nicely sitting over here on the homepage. Much better than this quarterly performance nonsense. But so yeah, it's a great option. Yeah. Any other questions? I didn't mention, but the report folders, dashboard folders, exactly the same. So both that applies. The sharing rules apply on both sides of that. Just make sure that that's understood. All right, cool. Any other questions on anything data and analytics related? So last week we covered backups, imports, validation, report types, and this week was the security and dashboards. Got them covered. It's probably one of my weaker top subjects because I rarely create reports for people. Most of the time they do that themselves. So I am not the best person on reports. But any questions before we move on? Hey everyone, I just wanted to interrupt briefly to again say thank you to our sponsor, the Des Moines Area Community College. Here locally, we call them DMACC, dmac.edu. If you are interested in any form of education, continuing ed, please check out their website. We are working closely together to get some Salesforce specific training put together. So check that out if you're interested in learning more and having a classroom style training for Salesforce. Thanks again to the wonderful folks at DMACC. All right. So what I wanted to make sure we cover and have a good understanding, because it's such an important topic and it's one that is so easily confused. And that is going to be your security controls and the differences between profiles and roles. I just want to kind of quickly cover some of this again, and then we'll probably jump out of here a little bit early. But when you're looking at a profile, you're going to want to be able to understand what happens inside the object settings for sure. So what I mean there is that's where all of your, I'm going to use the term CRUD, create, read, update, delete, permissions are all stored here. That's also where your tab settings are at. So tabs can be default on, which means that they will be visible, provided that the user's on an app that has that tab selected, or a member, or that tab is a member of that app. Default off means that it will not be on the top of the screen. And then hidden means you can't even see the tab. So be aware when you're in this particular section on objects, you're going to want to understand those scenarios up here at the top of the page. Obviously, you have your field level permissions there with read and edit, but your CRUD permissions, your record type is also here. Which record types, if they're enabled, which ones can they create? Something that always throws people with record types when they're new to Salesforce is, well, it says that I have access to the, well, in this case, master record type. But if we had other record types there, if I check this box, that means that I can create that record type. It has absolutely nothing to do with visibility to the record type. So if we had say partners as a record type on the account object, and on my profile, it's checked as one that I have access to, then that means I can simply create partner account records. If on Ashley's profile, she does not have that checkbox next to hers for partners, all that means is she cannot create partner records. It does not mean she can't see them. Visibility is going to be controlled down here with the read access. That one throws people frequently. So just be aware of that. All it has to do with is creatability. I'll make that as a word. The assigned apps, that's the items that you'll see under App Launcher. So that will be the piece that you'll need to remember. The other one that I like is app permissions. It's a good idea to study this page so that you know that call center features are all available within the app permissions. You've got content, knowledge, if that's an option in your org, partner relationship, that one you don't worry about that will not be on the exam. And then sales management type features. So these items under app permission are more that management-like level of control or permissions for within your profiles. So it's a good idea just to read through them before the exam. Make sure that you know that, oh, manage cases. What does that do? Just trust me on that one. It may save you on a handful of questions to be familiar with. Oh, transfer cases. That's a permission. I didn't realize that. So now you know, just by going through this and reading through it real quick. It's a simple one to do, and it's you'll find content, cases, cells are probably the big ones in here to be aware of. And I think that's really, and then of course your system permissions, that's the other one you spend forever. And login times and hours, IP ranges. There are org-wide settings for that. There's also profile settings for that. Org-wide overrides your profiles. So keep that in mind as well. Otherwise, I think those are really the big items to be aware of there. Any questions related to profiles that you've ran into that just confused the heck out of you that you'd like to talk through quick? I'll tell you, security is generally the most difficult piece for people to follow and understand. The advanced admin class or the advanced admin exam, super, super heavy on this topic. You're going to have a handful of questions that's going to be tied to it, but it's enough that you're going to want to know it at least well enough to to feel like you can talk to it effectively. Because if you can't, it could be what makes the difference between a pass and a fail on this exam. And then roles is the other piece there that I wanted to kind of run through again. Remember, profiles equals permissions, P and P for the titles. Roles equals records. So roles determine which records you have visibility to. So your roles often, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but they often mimic your org chart. That is not the basis for how you should create them. You should create them based on record visibility. So generally speaking, 80% of the time that also matches your org structure. But I will have a number of clients tell me, well, it's my assistant can't be in the same role as me. Well, I'm not ever going to show you this page then, because she's going to be in the same role as you, because she has the same access, or he has the same access as you do up at that top level. So you don't create a role for every position within your company. You create roles based off of record visibility needs. So keep that in mind. You do have options inside of your roles, and so it's good to remember that you've got the ability to control what the role can do as it relates to opportunity. I think cases access there as well, whether that's going to be view or edit capabilities. Probably it's not going to go terribly deep into this on this exam, but if you're looking to do the advanced admin, you're going to need to know this and the ramifications of different changes and settings on these roles. Any questions on roles? Okay, and then the last piece here that I wanted to make sure we covered again is the sharing roles. So if you, so your org-wide defaults, let's just start with that. Org-wide defaults, you have the ability to make those objects private, public read write, and there's a few others. Control by parent, it just kind of depends on the scenario. I don't think it's going to be terribly important for you to memorize which options are available in each object. What's important for you to know when you're reading your scenario is, are they telling me that it's public, or is it private, or is it private or public read write, private or public read only? Those are the things you're going to just want to pay attention to. When you see those in your scenario-based questions, hone in on that, because that's going to make all the difference most likely in how you answer the question. So pay attention to those org-wide defaults as they lay those out in your scenarios. And then with your sharing rules, you're going to want to understand the record owner type, and then your criteria based. For the most part, that's kind of makes logical sense to us, hopefully. Record owner, that's whoever is the owner of the record. And then criteria based, you can determine what the criteria is. So that's the rule. Step 3 is what records then, I'm sorry, that is the criteria. So 2 is the type. 3 is what is it that we're going to be sharing. So either if we're doing it based off of an owner, then we have the ability to define as the owner a public group, a role, or a role subordinate. And then we can select which option matches that. So we're just building the criteria here in step 3, whether that's an owner or based on criteria. So this is going to be the record that we share. And the step 4 is, who are we sharing it with? Just keep familiar with the fact that it's public groups, roles and subordinates. And then I think with that kind of information here, you'll be able to decipher. If you read your questions carefully, you should be able to decipher any kind of issue or question scenario that comes up related to your sharing rules. You have the ability to share either read only or read write. In some cases, you'll have a transfer in there, I think.